Okay, so we're going to talk about the typical forms a company may take or a business may take. And we really have three alternatives, three different types of business organization. We have a sole trader, a partnership, or maybe a limited company. So in this clip, we're going to talk about those three different types of companies, advantages, disadvantages, why you may choose one of these to run your business through. So just to say, start off here, sole trader. This is basically one person owning the whole of the business and running it as their own personal business. So this young lady, I don't know whether she's a sole trader or whatever. It looks like maybe a small business. So perhaps she's probably a sole trader. Number two, we could expand and be a partnership. And what that means is that we've got several people running the business, several people owning the business. It is similar to a sole trader. It's just that we have several people here owning the business. So they are quite closely connected. And then thirdly, we have this alternative, limited company. Now this is actually quite radically different to these other two. Limited company, the word limited means the liability of the company is limited. What that means is that it has a separate legal identity. It has what's called a separate legal personality. And any liabilities of the company rest with the company. They don't fall on the owners of the company unless there's special negligence, in which case the directors could be sued. But generally, legal action is limited in limited liability companies. So what we're going to do now, we're going to have a look at this in a little bit more detail, especially limited companies, because they tend to be really the most important companies in any country. Right, sole traders, as we said here, they're operated by one person, so they tend to be quite small operations. Partnerships, similar to sole traders, but operated by several people. Could be any number. Potentially it could be 1,000 partners, but we typically see maybe 2 partners, 3 partners, 4 partners. Once the company gets much bigger, we usually tend to have a limited company set up. Limited company, capital is provided by the shareholders. There's generally more capital. They tend to be quite large businesses. And in fact, the biggest companies in the world would be limited company organizations. So Apple, IBM, Facebook, Exxon, they're all limited companies at the end of the day. Right, okay, so should we have a limited company, or should we be a partnership, or should we be a sole trader? What are the advantages or disadvantages of that setup? Well, I think there's 3 main advantages, and I think there's 3 main disadvantages for a limited company. So let's start over here. One of the advantages is that we can actually issue shares quite easily in a company, and they can be bought and sold quite easily. It's not particularly difficult to do that, and limited companies are well set up if you want to expand and issue new shares. So very easy to raise capital, and this is the reason, I guess, why most big companies, most big businesses tend to be limited companies. And then thirdly, they are generally more formal and more established, and that's generally, in some ways, we could say a good thing. So they have particular legal requirements, legal procedures. We have to have certain meetings. They have things like annual general meetings. They have requirements for the accounts. They tend to be more formal organizations. And if you're running a large business, this is probably more suitable for you. Alternatively, We do have some disadvantages. So I think there's probably 3 big disadvantages. There are a lot of rules that need to be followed, and they're basically set up by company law. If we don't follow these rules, we have major problems, and potentially we could have some legal action against us. So we do need to know what the rules are, and the penalties can be very severe if we break these rules. Number 2, we have more administration, more formality, more work involved in running the company. So it's a more established situation, really, at the end of the day. And then number 3, the capital is fixed. So it's a problem, really, that although it's easy to raise capital, it's very difficult to actually repay that capital if we have a limited company situation. So that is a problem. Oh, hi, Alex. Yeah.
So what business type would you say is the best?
Okay. I mean, that's a question a lot of people ask. It's a very common question. So you may have a client, for example, and they'll say, okay, I have a fantastic business. And then they'll say, well, you know, I've heard about sole trader, I've heard about partnership, I've heard about companies. Which one should I use? It depends on your business. It depends on your business. Very much depends on these 6 different situations. I would say in general, if you're having a large company, probably you want to be a limited company. If you're a small organization, if you're a small business, looking at this situation, I think a sole trader would be better for you. But you really need to talk to someone perhaps who knows a lot about this before you make that decision. Right, okay, so what we'll do, we have some questions here. We have a quiz. We have true or false. We have 6 different questions, and I'm going to ask Alex to help me a little bit with these questions, and we'll run through them. So the first question here, sole trader cannot have any staff. What would you say, Alex? Is that true or false?
So that's false because they can have many staff but just one owner.
Yeah, okay, so that's false. So sole tradership could be one person running it, and he or she could have 100 staff. That is possible. Partnership is a separate legal entity. What do you feel about that?
That's false because it's the limited company that is a separate legal entity.
Yeah, okay. So a limited liability company has a separate legal entity. Partnerships are really just personal entity, so partners can be sued directly, the same as a sole trader. Number 3, capital in a limited company is split into shares. What do you feel about that?
That's true.
Okay, that's true. So, for example, we have maybe just a very small company. We have the capital is $100. We may have 100 shares of $1 each. That is possible. Number 4, sole traders tend to be larger than limited companies. They tend to be larger business than limited companies. Is that true or false?
I think that's false.
Oh, okay. Why is that false?
Because sole traders, when they get bigger, usually turn into limited companies.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. That's good. Number 5, in general, it's easier to raise capital for a limited company. Is that true or false?
That's true.
Okay. Yeah, probably the main advantage of a limited company. Could be one of the main advantages. Sole trader businesses are easier to set up than limited companies. Is that true or false?
That's True, false.
Okay, so we don't know that one. Right, okay. Well, you're very honest. You're very honest. So let's have a think about that one. Seems to be maybe a question mark on that one. Sole trader businesses are easier to set up than limited companies. Yes, they are easy to set up. That is true. What do we have to do to set up a sole tradership? Almost nothing. We just say we're a business. The only thing we really need to do is to tell the tax authorities to say we have a business. That's all we have to do. With a limited company, we have to go through certain formalities, setting up the company, issuing the shares, organising a general meeting. Can be a lot of work at the end of the day. So sole trader businesses are generally quite easy to set up. So that is true as well. Okay. So thank you very much, Alex. That was really, really useful. Thanks a lot.